happiness will prevail. G'day Whovians, it's Time Lord Myth here with you again, and today we're looking at a classic Doctor Who story that really sort of polarises fans even today. Today we're going to be looking at the Happiness Patrol. Now I have to admit, when I saw this very strange type of story many years ago, I didn't like it. I just thought it was completely stupid. You know, the settings, the costumes, the hair, I just didn't get it at all. But it was many years later I discovered it was actually a subtle reference to Margaret Thatcher's Britain. Now this story was written by Graham Curry, and it basically involves, for one of the few times, it's a story where the Doctor actually knows where he's going and has a plan in mind. He has heard about problems on this colony, Earth colony, called Terra Alpha, where there's supposed to be problems with the population mysteriously disappearing. So he and Ace go to this colony to sort out what's going on, and of course being the Doctor to solve it. Now there's some wonderful performances in this. Sylvester McCoy really comes into his own as the Doctor. His own take, his own personality really shines through. And Sphie Aldred was one of the best companions in the later, you know, sort of dying years of Doctor Who. She was feisty, she was strong, she stood up to menace really, really well. And she even, you know, managed to show that she was scared, but she'd always, okay, bring it on, fish face, whatever. She was really good. Now, the guest star in this, playing Helen A, the ruler of the colony, was the wonderful Shelia Hancock. Now, Shelia Hancock is a veteran of British TV and movies, and she's also been in some other, you know, international movies too. She's just a wonderful actress, and I love her in her comedy roles, but in this she brings the right amount of gravitas. Now, an interesting fact is that Shelia Hancock was married to the late John Thaw. Now, if that name sounds familiar, that's because John Thaw was another veteran British actor, and he was in TV shows such as The Sweeney, Inspector Morse, and many others. Now, as I said, I had no idea this was a take on you know, Britain under the Thatcher administration. Now, I'd heard that, you know, she wasn't very, or to put it mildly, she wasn't very popular as a PM. Now, I had a brother who was in the entertainment industry, and he was over at the time in Britain when the poll tax riots occurred, and he and his manager were in a restaurant when a rubbish bin smashed through the window of the restaurant they were eating, and they actually had to be escorted back to their hotel by the police. Now, wow, that's frightening. That is frightening, the depth of sort of intensity of hatred of some of these policies. Now, you know, it's as I said, because it's a very polarizing story, some Whovians hate it for the costumes and the hair colours and everything, but when you look at it, it's meant to represent, you know, a time or a situation where everything looks wonderful on the outside, but it's rotten inside. And one of the best creations, who I thought at first was very stupid, was the Candyman, who was basically a robot or android created with the mind of a real person who'd been salvaged. and the methods he used for execution, like for killing convicted criminals, was to kill them under this deluge of fondant, which he says is so delicious, so wonderful that people actually die of pleasure. And I thought that was stupid, but then I realised, of course, too, Whovians, that even in death, happiness must prevail. So criminals had to have a happy death, which seems anonymous, but it shows you the length that, the surface, nothing to look at here, everything's wonderful, okay? Now here's a scene where Doctor and Ace actually confront the Candyman. So take a look at this.
Candyman, I don't believe you've met my young friend Ace, an expert in calorification, incineration, carbonization, and inflammation.
I beg your pardon.
She's come to look at your oven.
Has she indeed? Then she should wait to be asked. Impolite guests get to feel the back of my candy hand.
That may be, Candyman, but the last time we met you said you were going to kill me.
Really, Doctor? Thank you for reminding me.
I wouldn't give that pimplehead 100 to 1 against you, Professor.
Pimplehead, indeed! I'm disappointed in you, Doctor. I expected you to choose your friends more carefully. Still, she won't be a friend much longer, will she?
I agree, you're a pimplehead.
I'm finding this rather tiresome. Heads or tails, Doctor?
Tails. Well?
That would be telling.
You're playing a dangerous game, Candyman. That red-hot poker could cut through you like a knife through butterscotch.
I have to bow however reluctantly to your logic, which leaves me only one alternative.
Quick, Ace! Open the oven door!
What about the Candyman?
Oh, you keep sort of colouring, flavouring, and preservative.
Okay, so I think you'll agree, even if you don't like the Candyman, you have to admit that that design was just brilliant. Okay, very loosely based on, I think it was, because I'm in Australia and we don't get a lot of British sweets unless you specifically look for them, but I'm pretty positive there's a mascot or an avatar that's used by one of the sweet companies. It may be Bassett, and I remember it because I've seen it on packets of like a licorice all-sort man, and I'm sure he was based on that. I haven't been able to find out 100% Whovians, but one of the underlying messages of the Happiness Patrol is that you can't experience happiness unless you experience sadness too. They too live in balance, yin and yang, and that's perfectly explained by the blues player that the Doctor and Ace meet when they very first arrive, and he's playing the blues, and he says something along the lines of, you can't have a rainbow without the blues. And this edict of happiness will prevail, there is no sadness whatsoever in colours, in moods, in whatever, even extends to the Happiness Patrol or maintenance crews painting the TARDIS pink, so it's all bright and jolly because blue is, just too sad. So you have to give credit to Graham Curry, the writer, for coming up with something that was really a unique story for Doctor Who for the time, and something that does go deeper than what the superficial colours and costumes and everything suggests. And John Nathan Turner did have I don't know if it was a policy or just something he wanted to do, where he gave new writers a chance to give Doctor Who a different look and a different take on stories. And this story is one of those ones that still today, you know, like 20 odd years later, still polarises Doctor Who fans. Now, I appreciate it a lot more than I did when I first watched it. So if at first you don't sort of see it, look back, take a look at Wilkie and look at Margaret Thatcher and the period of her prime ministership in Britain and see what, you know, history says, and apply it to the Happiness Patrol. And I'm sure you'll get more enjoyment from it by doing that too, Dark Realmers. Sorry, Whovians, that's the problem when you run two channels. Okay then, well that's it from me, Time Lord Myth, for this episode, and I'll be back again soon with another look back at classic Doctor Who with some more facts and trivia for you. So until then, I'll see you again somewhere in time and space. Bye for now.